Welcome to Olaf's Oldtimer. Today, in a bit different setting from my other videos, I choose this one to do the promised little wrap up for the trip with my W115 from Spain to Germany. And to tell you a bit about the trip, I thought I will do it as follows. I will tell you a bit about the different legs, the daily stretches I picked and drove. Following, I will add, I don't know, 2 or 3 photos which I took from that stretch, and then move on to the next one. If you want to follow the trip in more detail, you can go back to the other YouTube videos. I think it's 13 episodes, and somehow I think I will link each episode somewhere here in this video. So if you want to go back to a certain part of the trip, you're welcome to do so. As it's mid-November now in northern Germany, I have the fire going, the dog is behind me, and I have a nice coffee. So how did I come up with the idea? Of course, I love classic Mercedes cars, and especially the ones you can drive, which are not meant to sit in a museum. So I was looking, sorry, my nose is leaking, for another one, and I always wanted to drive it, I don't know, from Germany to the Northern Cape in Norway, or through Europe. To find a good car in a good condition, of course, it's advisable. At least if you want to have a rust-free or car with extremely few rust, to go to Southern Europe. And so I talked to my friend Tony on the Canarian Islands. Please help me finding a car. And I had that idea for almost 2 years now, I think. But you need a lot of time, you need to put a lot of effort in it, because you can't just start in Google and find your car without being there. So it's extremely helpful if you have somebody on site, and if you're thinking about doing about the same, keep in mind that it's not mandatory, but extremely helpful if you have somebody on site who can help you out with solving issues. So the episodes 1 and 2 are about my plan to go there and how to find a car. In this case, Tony did help extremely with local sites in the internet to find a car. In the end, the car was from Facebook Marketplace, but he went there first, also with an expert, to check out the car in general, if it's worth a trip. So in the end, I decided to fly there, stay there a couple of days, check the car out, maybe fix some stuff, and turns out you need more time than you believe you would. So I would suggest stay there a week at least and try out the car. I did that partially. That was in episode 2, I think. And yeah, so after all, everything worked out fine. From here, I booked the flight, and also from Germany, I booked transfer with the ferry from Las Palmas, Gran Canaria, to Huelva on the Spanish Peninsula. You can also go to Cadiz, depending which ferry company you prefer. So, what did I do there? As the car was in extremely good condition, after all, I checked oil, coolant, and all that kind of stuff. Everything I did before I left the island was to go to a workshop, have a mechanic take a look, and change 2 tires in the front of the car. I didn't even check the oil because I did check the oil. I didn't even change the oil because the vendor said, hey, there's only a couple thousand kilometers in that oil, but I don't know how many years. I had some invoices showing me the brakes had been worked on. The car drove fine, it had light. I saw a new generator, which turned out a bit tricky throughout the trip. Yeah, so I spent a couple of days with my friend and his family. And thank you, Tony. Thank you a lot. Also, thank you to the vendor, who was of extreme good help. Solly, thank you so much. Who also was so generous to help me out with an insurance, because you need the car to be insurance to transfer it to Germany. And you can't get a license plate from Germany. And you can't really get an insurance from Germany. I talked to several insurance companies, and nobody wanted to do it. They all told me, go to the country where you buy the car, organize it there. Thank you. Also, it helps if you are familiar with the language of the country where you want to buy that car. That also helps you. So in the end, after a couple of days, I went on the ferry, and that would be episode you'll see in the comments below. As I had said, I had booked the transfer from Germany because I was not sure how many people want to go. You could choose from a cabin or a budget seat or a VIP seat. I took the VIP seat because the cabin was twice as much as this VIP seat, but a VIP seat is a bit bigger and a bit more comfortable than the standard seat. I think it was a good choice. So I could sleep in that seat, and in the end, the transfer took 45 hours, a bit longer than I expected. And it's not a direct passage. You first stop only for an hour or two on Teneriffa, and from there straight to Huelva, southern Spain. Life on board is easy. You can book meals or you can buy them directly. You can sit outside. In my case, the weather was fine. Late October, and nothing to do. 3 times a day you can visit your car. Important to know the times, and it's not the local time, it's the peninsular time. So you better have your stuff with you, the stuff you need, because if you're not in one of those 3 hours per day, you won't see your car. They don't let you. There's a gate. In the end, I enjoyed the time. You can buy internet, which is rather expensive. WhatsApp text messages are free. But if you want to have full access, that's a lot of money you spend. So more or less, of course, you can download videos and watch them on your tablet. I didn't do any of it. I had a book. I was happy. So far for the transfer to Huelva. Next part of the trip was also kind of pre-planned, as I had asked AI, please show me a route from southern Spain to northern Germany, avoiding all kinds of Autobahn, Autovia, and so on. So only the small, tiny roads, so I can see the countryside. So of course you take longer. With a car like this, of course you are not going 120 kilometers per hour anyway, but you are going tiny winding roads through mountains, so it takes you longer than expected. In the beginning, I thought I could make 500, 600 kilometers a day, and that would be rather conservative. So I would have time to do some video editing in the evening, sit outside, take a look at the sites wherever I would be. And I decided to go to Salamanca, which was supposed to be, and it was, 540 kilometers. And the ferry arrived in Huelva with a delay, as it already left Las Palmas with a delay. So before I could hit the road, it was well after 10:30 in the morning. And the drive was beautiful. It was really nice. I've been in southern Spain and Andalusia, but only as a tourist on the beach. And so I was amazed how beautiful the landscape was. During the trip, I met some dogs in my first stop. My idea was, like every day, I could stop somewhere, have a coffee, have a bocadillo, something to eat. Wasn't all that easy. Maybe I was too picky. Maybe I was too far off the main routes. So I had bought some food that I had left then from the trip on the ferry. And well, the first stop, I had 2 dogs with me and they wanted some of my food. So at least I had some company. It was a nice trip, but it was uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill. It was getting dark on me. It started to rain. I figured no rain before I hit the borderline to Germany. Also, different story. End of October, beginning November. I think I arrived first or 2nd November in southern Spain. So I arrived at my first destination when it was dark, 7 p.m. And I was totally exhausted. Driving unknown roads in the dark, raining. The wipers of the car were extremely good. So again, thank you, Solly, for taking such good care of the car, because everything worked. Anyway, I had booked my apartment via Airbnb, as I did for most of my nights. And I paid between 32 and 52 euros per night. So really, I think really fair prices. And everybody I met was super nice. Some people even nicer, but everybody was super nice and helpful. So thank you. Very recommendable to do that. Not everybody on Airbnb reacts within 5 hours, so you can't go out and start, making reservations at noon when you are halfway through your trip. Sometimes it won't work out. In some cases, I reserved the night before, didn't get an answer, canceled that reservation, started from scratch, and had an answer in 20 minutes. So it depends. So yeah, I arrived in Salamanca at night, totally exhausted. In a suburban area, not a lot of restaurants, but found a super nice, tiny place and had two meals, 2 dishes, 2 plates, and a beer for 6 euros. Just perfect. So, first night, Salamanca. The next day, I started off with a different plan. Originally, as said, 500, 600 kilometers a day. I want that back to, hey, let's start it with 300, maybe 400 kilometers. And I stuck to that. One leg was only 270, I think, kilometers. That's all fine. And obviously, it takes time. If you go with a friend, of course, you can drive 12 hours a day, 6 per person, and you are home in no time. But, well, all in all, it took me selecting the car, checking it, getting home 2 weeks. So I made a different plan from Salamanca, not to go to southern France in one stretch, but only to go to Burgos. Also extremely nice, beautiful landscape. It was, for me, it was breathtaking. There were hours I didn't see a single car. I could stop wherever I wanted. It was quiet, it was sunny. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, that night I made it to Burgos. Burgos, extremely beautiful town. Probably Salamanca is too, but I was in a suburb and I had no desire to go and do any sightseeing, so I skipped that. In Burgos, I was staying more or less in the center of town, which first I didn't know because I parked in the center of town while waiting for my accommodation to be confirmed. And to drive to the apartment, it took me 15, almost 20 minutes. In the end, to get back on foot to the same place was 5 minutes. So I was right downtown. Beautiful cathedral, bars, restaurants. I had a super, super fine meal that night. The host was nice. It was beautiful. Next leg of the trip went from Burgos. I planned to San Sebastian, but as it is, you pick a site and then you reference it to Airbnb app and you get suggestions outside of where you actually wanted to go. And I went to Astigarraga. I don't know, I'm sorry. I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, but Astigarraga, I would say. Well, you've seen how I wrote it. I wrote it down, and yeah, that stretch only 266 kilometers. Again, wonderful drive. I had a hard time getting the car started, and was actually thinking about, hey, how is ADAC, in mid of Spain is going to help me. How does that work out? Because I couldn't get the car started. It was extremely cold in Burgos, 3 degrees at night. The car was parked uphill. Whatever the issue was, I had a leak in the ejection pump. So I guess the diesel ran out of the lines, the hoses, and the system sucked in some air. And it was cold. The glow plugs weren't at its best. As I said, I did next to nothing to the car before I started. I got the car going and I had a wonderful short trip to the very north of Spain. As I had planned the trip differently beforehand, I didn't expect to see the Atlantic Ocean because it was more or less a direct line to Pau, north of the Pyrenean mountains. As I changed the trip a bit, the route all of a sudden touched the Atlantic Ocean. So I could stop at a town you can find in the episodes, the detailed episodes. And at least I didn't go swimming there, but I could go to the beach and put my feet into the ocean, got myself all wet, but beautiful trip. The accommodation in this small town close to San Sebastian was more a professional outlet. It was like a motel without parking. But it was nicely located. I even made it to go out, sit outside and have a beer. The next day, I started off to France. Also, no issues. I started off, it was warm. In northern Spain, at the Atlantic or close to the Atlantic, it was so much warmer in Burgos. In Burgos, as I said, at night I had 3 degrees. When I woke up there in the morning, I had 12, 13 degrees. All of a sudden, I was back in shorts and t-shirts. So I drove to Agen in more or less southern France, and driving along the coastline for a short stretch in France. And all of a sudden, Biarritz came up and I ended in a big traffic jam. So that was a bit frustrating. Actually, that was the only traffic jam I had. I had some traffic situations in Clermont-Ferand later on. But yeah, I was in a traffic jam and I looked at the map and I thought, hey, it's 5 minutes to the left and you could go to the beach. And I did it. It was warm. I ended up parking in the dead center of Biarritz, a minute by foot to the beach. It was a tiny beach. It was warm. The ocean was cool, but wonderful. Hey, what a day. What a day. The rest of the trip to Agen was not that breathtaking to me, because the landscape reminded me more a bit of German landscapes. I guess it's beautiful as well, but it didn't take my breath away. And in the evening I arrived in Agen, La France, without any issues. What was great about Agen was my host, a super nice lady, a house very close to the center of Agen, the house was an old house, and that's a very positive statement because it was vintage all over, and it was so nicely made with furniture with so much taste, high ceilings, yeah, really nice. Also, the only stop where the host served me a breakfast in the morning. Yeah, also there I wanted to find some typical food, and I ended up in an Indian restaurant, which just was very nice, very tasty. Yeah, so I had my stop there, and the leg from northern Spain to there was on the dot 300 kilometers. So next day from Agen, I had my trip planned to Clermont-Ferand. Never heard of it, probably is not true, but I had no connection whatsoever with Clermont-Ferand. Later on, somebody on this channel told me, hey, that's where Michelin tires are made, so get yourself a set. Which, by the way, I have for one of my cars. So I went there, and as you could observe during my videos, that every now and then I had an issue with a belt. And the car has two belts. One is driving the servo pump only, and the other one is driving the generator. And in the middle we have the water pump. I always thought, hey, is the water pump involved? It was not. And the belt driving the servo pump was extremely loose. So all that noise, I was so sure it was coming from that belt. So I decided I will have that one fixed, especially as the generator looked brand new and the tension of that belt, which I could reach from top, was perfectly all right. I thought. So when I came closer to Clermont-Ferand, I got the feedback from my host, hey, the room isn't ready, please do not arrive before 6 p.m. I was in Clermont-Ferand around 5, so I figured, hey, what a day to get your belt fixed. Because my idea was just to find some, small outfit, go there and tell them, hey, take a wrench and a lever, just tension it, 5-minute job, here's $20, thanks. I didn't find such a workshop, as you can see in the episode. So yeah, first, as I was running a bit low on gas, on diesel, as I thought, I did not. I asked the host, hey, is there something nearby where I can fix the car? Yeah, sure. In the end, question of definition, it was like actually 15 minutes, but traffic jams in Clermont-Ferand over and over. I found an outlet, but it was more a tire shop. They really couldn't help me, but they had a reference of a Mercedes expert. So I drove out there. Also another, I don't know, only 5 or 10 minutes, but at that time it was almost 6 p.m. The workshop was closed, but there was still a guy inside, and I was knocking at the window. He opened, he was extremely friendly and said, hey, I can't help you tonight, but you can come back tomorrow. So that's what I did in the end. So I spent the night outside of Clermont-Ferand. So also again, I only saw, I guess, a rather poor suburb. The host told me, hey, you need to lock the door. It's dangerous here. At night, well, it didn't look too good, and I couldn't park the car too close to the apartment. In the morning, it looked fine. So I was in Clermont-Ferand. following day, I started off to the workshop, the Mercedes expert in Clermont-Ferand. What a sight. Oh my God. He had cars in his showroom, Pagode, a Corvette, and his lot was full of classic Mercedes cars. W123, W115 Coupe, and that makes it a C114, I guess. W140, 124s, all kinds of stuff. So I didn't have to wait for too long. They were extremely nice. They did what I wanted. In the end, that belt driving the servo pump wasn't the issue at all. So they fixed it. I paid 49 euros. You can't really complain. And I was so happy, but I had the same issue. And it was not worse than before. But before, I only had this slipping belt making all those noises only when the temperature declined or when the air became more humid, or probably related to that and darkness when I had electric consumption on the car and the generator needed to reload. And when there was load on it, the belt started slipping. But at that time, I was, you know, in my childhood, my father, when you heard a car with a slipping belt, he said, oh, I think his water pump is broken. So in my head, I had a broken water pump, whatever. I left the parking lot, well, this workshop, and the question for me was, do I turn around now? And what then? Then they order water pump. I sit there in Clermont-Ferand. It was cold. My stay was unsafe. It was raining and it wasn't beautiful either. So I wanted to get going. And so I did. And for 1 hour, I heard the belt slipping. I I contacted Tino from the workshop through WhatsApp, and he said, hey, don't worry, your car made 2,000 miles or 2,000 kilometers so far. He will do another 1,000, don't worry. It's not the water pump, that will be a different noise. So I said, okay, I'm cool. And the noise disappeared, and I made it to Dijon, which was my next destination. Plus, the weather improved. All of a sudden, it became warmer, the sun came out, perfectly nice. And by the way, from Agen to Clermont-Ferand, 374, but you could see that in the map before. 304 kilometers to Dijon. And I arrived after a beautiful drive, really beautiful drive, in Dijon with also the perfect host. Coming from Clermont-Ferand, I was a bit afraid about the car, somebody breaking off the start, damaging the car. Not knowing, I know it was not in the center of Dijon, it was outside Dijon, not knowing what kind of neighborhood it was. And he said, well, you can also park in front of our garage if you like. So I was in contact with him. In the end, he was so nice with his wife, Christophe and Mireille, I think. And he was so nice, such a nice guy. So yeah, I arrived there safely. I parked my car in front of their garage. Unfortunately, the car was dripping diesel. So hopefully you can get that off your white stones in front of your driveway more easy than other kinds of car fluids. But then diesel is oil, whatever. Well, I put something under the car, but I missed one spot and the car dropped into his driveway. But he was so nice, and in the morning he cleaned the windscreen for me, because I discussed this channel with him in the evening, and he watched it and he figured, hey, the windscreen is dirty, that's not good for the video. So he got up really early in the morning and cleaned my windscreen. super nice, really super nice. So yeah, that was my trip to Dijon. Next day, I went from Dijon to a place called Villawald. At least that's what I thought. In Dijon, the weather was nice, and I picked that location because I wanted to stay just outside of Germany for one more night because I love France so much. Well, I wanted to stay outside of Germany as long as possible, yes. And from the weather forecast, I could see just a bit further more to the east in Germany, it was cool, cloudy, cold, foggy, and in France, sun. So I drove to Villawald, which is not too close from the border, and I arrived there, but no feedback from my host. It was like a super host, 5 stars. I had no feedback, and I was standing there in Villawald Center, which is the townhouse, La Mairie, with no place to stay. So I couldn't sit there and wait. So I canceled that accommodation. It was another hour and a half into Germany. And I had stayed in a place in the Pfalz region before. I called that guy, and he was so nice. He said, "Oh, everything is booked, but I still have something in the attic, and I'll leave the door open. I'm not there, but you can go there, and there's no heating, but you know, you'll have a blower there, a heat blower." So I was more or less safe. And so I drove 1.5 hours more, and it turned cloudy. It didn't rain, but it turned cloudy and cold. And as mentioned in episode, I don't know, the car had no heater. So the electric fan for the inside did not work, but also you couldn't move the levers for the heater because the car coming from Gran Canaria in over 50 years never used the heater. So those valves and its left side, right side separately were never touched. So I knew I wouldn't touch those because breaking them loose might result in a leakage inside the car or the engine bay. In both ways, I would lose coolant, and I didn't want to deal with that shit. In the end, I made it to Waldhambach, yet another address. Thank you, Frank, for the accommodation, and Alex and Tim. And I was frozen. I spent the evening in front of a fireplace like this because I was frozen only from 1 hour sitting in the car. I figured before, hey, if it gets cold in Germany, I'll take this blanket, which was given to me from my friend Tony, which was already extremely helpful on the ferry because that was my bedding, my cover for the night. So I figured I would just cover myself in the car with that thing and wear my only hoodie and my jacket. But your feet get so extremely cold because I only had some small sneakers with me, so I wasn't really equipped for cold. In the end, I made it perfectly all right into Germany, and that day I drove 402 kilometers. Second but last day, I started off in Waldhambach, fixing the car a bit, checking all the fuses. All were good, but blower didn't work. But we could get the valves going. So at least from the air blowing into the car, from the driving speed, gave me so much warmth in the car. So that was the best. That was really the best, and a game changer for the upcoming 2 days, because it would have been nasty. If you're sitting in the car and you're freezing all the time, that's not nice. Plus, I did have rain. I did have rain on both last days. I had fog, it was cold, the sun was not out, it was not nice. Also, we retensioned the belt for the generator a bit. And again, when I started off from Waldhambach, also the belt was slipping and making a terrible noise. And I had seen before that the mounting of the generator was not properly done. It was a bit shaky. Well, yeah, all that tightened up a bit. I got myself going, and I heard the belt, and it stopped doing its noise. So I was happy and unconcerned, and I was heading for Hannover-Schmünden. And that is a stretch of 387 kilometers. I started around noon. I figured that's all fine, and now that the belt is retensioned again, what can happen? I'm driving in Germany, I know my ways around, I could pick bigger roads, so I arrive in the dark. And the accommodation was booked and confirmed, so all was nice. And I was driving along, and I had to stop for diesel, and the car didn't start up real well that day. I didn't really think about it because it turned real slow and came to life, but you know, it turned real slow, the starting procedure. Later that day, driving, it turned dark, and I wondered, hey, when I was driving the car in the dark on Gran Canaria, I said to Tony, hey, this car is having good light. It's amazing. And I also figured, hey, you got more or less new glasses, so your vision is perfectly all right, but I couldn't see too well. I was noticing, I was getting closer to the screen and to the steering wheel all the time. Until it dawned to me, the generator wasn't loading anymore. And it wasn't loading because the belt was slipping. I just wasn't hearing it anymore because the belt, which was also not the perfect fitting size, was worn so much in the meantime that it was just slipping constantly. So as it was a gray day, it was turning dark, I had the lights on, I had the wipers on, and the engine from that old diesel is running forever. It doesn't need any electricity once it's started. So I ran out of light. So I started to look for a gas station before, because I figured, hey, somebody needs to help you. And by the way, it was a Saturday night. First gas station I had picked from the Maps app did not exist. I ended up in a pitch dark parking lot, and a nice, I think he was Polish guy, just arriving with his car there. I asked him, hey, where's a gas station around here? He said, yeah, there. So I went there, and it was huge. It was a huge gas station near German Autobahn. And I asked the guy, hey, I'm looking for a battery and a wrench, because I knew I could just put in a different battery which is fully loaded and would get me there, because I was about 1 hour driving from Hannover-Schmünden. Nothing. He had all kinds of stuff. Coffee machines for truckers, some kind of clothing, coolers. No battery, no multimeter, no wrench, no nothing. So I said, okay, thank you, and left the station and sat in the car, which I kept idling outside because it wouldn't start again. Didn't know what to do, turned the light on, and it was perfectly there, bright. I said, hey, cool, it's loading again. So I was driving, and after 10 minutes, the lights were almost out again. So I stopped, turned off the light, waited, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute, turned it back on again. Generator came to life for whatever reason. I had light and I drove, but these intervals were getting shorter and shorter. So yeah, I did that until I arrived at my destination, and that was terrible. Driving with the lights going out, and the last stretch was through the mountains, pitch dark, a winding road, and you couldn't, make a stop on a shoulder because it was like a protected road through the mountains. That was terrible. That was really terrible. So I arrived there. The accommodation was in the old city center of Hannover-Schmünden, and I just didn't care anymore. It said delivery traffic is okay, so I went there. I thought I have a suitcase in there, and stopped right in front of the apartment, which was just above a Vietnamese restaurant, and the Vietnamese host greeted me outside the restaurant. Hello, we were expecting you. Hey, first shut off your car, and then we can, I said, no. When I shut off the car, it won't start anymore. It needs to be there where I park. And she said, hey, okay, this is a pedestrian zone, but just park there. There won't be an issue. So that was really nice. I parked it there, and I was sure next day the car wouldn't stop. But in the end, I made it there, and I had in my head, I want some real food tonight. I want some fries, and I want a Wiener Schnitzel. So I parked the car, did not go to this probably very good Vietnamese restaurant, and found a Ratskeller, really traditional German restaurant, and had my Wiener Schnitzel. So yeah, that was really, really good. Last leg of the trip, and which would only be 273 kilometers, got me home to where I am now, to Lüneburg. In the morning, the car, of course, did not start. I had to try, but it didn't say a thing. So I called the ADAC, die Gelben Engel, was assured latest in an hour somebody would be there. And it was for sure less than, I think it was 40 minutes or so. I could spend the night in the time in a bakery close by, have some breakfast, have a coffee, look at some people. A guy from the motor club arrived, super nice guy. and me, idiot, I didn't ask him for his name. And on the slip he gave me, he only has a number, but if you ever see it, thank you so much. Because he not only restarted my car with a booster, quite easy, and as I said, once the engine is running, you're fine. And it was daylight and there was no rain in the forecast, but in the end it did rain. So I didn't expect to use any electricity in the car, also because the fan was broken and the radio's broken, so there's no... But he also took a look at the generator, tried to fix it, was looking for a washer, drilled a bigger hole in it and fixed it and retensioned the whole thing. And yeah, for that day I was good to go. And by the way, since then, this old belt didn't say a thing. And as I knew I would arrive in time in Lüneburg, I turned on the light and I used the wipers, because so what? And until today, the car is working fine with that setup. But this is why I'm sitting here now. I wanted to do this video in front of the car, but we had to wait for some spare parts. And the next video will be about what had to be done to the car, what needed to be fixed, and how it goes with the safety inspection, the Hauptuntersuchung here in Germany, the homologization process, the registration as a historic car and all that. That's coming up in the next video. But until end of last week, we had to wait for the parts. Now the workshop is waiting on the working on the car. Yeah, not waiting, hopefully. So I decided I would sit here in the warm and tell you a bit about the trip. So as you can see, I made it home perfectly fine. It was a wonderful trip. I can just tell you, do it. If you have the feeling a road trip like that, all by yourself or together with a friend, would be something for you, do it. Prepare as well as you can, not planning into detailed portions of the trip, because it will be differently for sure. But well, as I went by plane, you know, you can't take all the tools with you. And also I added a nice huge power bank into my luggage, and it was taken out because to airway legislation, you're not supposed to have that in your luggage. So I lost that one. But I didn't bring a car jack, I didn't bring a wrench. I only had some cables, some cable ties, some gloves, some tape, that kind of stuff. So, and make sure you have support on site, or make sure your language skills are adequately so you can arrange for support on site before you start. And then just do it. And if you break down, you break down. All you need is time and patience. Talking about patience, I could talk about cost real quick. Well, whatever you want to pay for a trip, for a plane ticket. Do you want to fly direct or make a stop? I made a stop. So I guess depending on how well you plan, you can pay between 100 and 600 euros for the plane ticket to get to Gran Canaria or one of those islands. The transfer for the ferry was 360 euros. For this VIP seat. As I said, accommodation, depending what you like and what you expect for a night. I was fine with an average 40 euros per night. Of course, you can spend as much money as you like. I think you can't do it for less. I think 30 euros per night is really the minimum, but you're welcome to sleep in the car. I didn't want to do it, but you can do that too. As I avoided Autobahn, Autovias and all that stuff, there was no Maut, no road fees for me, nothing. So all I spent was 50 euros for the tensioning of the belt in France. As I'm a member of the motor club, the service was for free, so thank you for that. On the trip, I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stops for gas. And it took me 230 liters to get home. Starting from the ferry in Las Palmas to my hometown, it were 3,167 kilometers, so more or less 3,200 kilometers, 230 liters. Price per liter varied extremely on the Canarian Islands, very cheap. To fill your car there, a liter is €1.17 or something. The most expensive was in France, a liter for €1.69. So average consumption was 7.2 liters. And total cost for the 3,000 something kilometers were €363 on diesel. Of course, you have to buy the car. Most probably, depending on how much you spend and whatever the condition of the car is. I think mine is in an extremely good condition. However, it wasn't used too much, and I drove it without any further issues for those 3,000 and more kilometers. Before I left, I drove another 400 on the island. Of course, there is things that need to be fixed before you get through the German safety inspection. So you will spend some money on that, and I would consider it normal if you buy a classic car somewhere in Southern Europe, you will break down and you will need some money to get things fixed on the trip. You might need a new starter, a new water pump, a new bearing, a new battery, a new whatever it is, new tires. You have to pay for the ferry, which is not that cheap. On the other hand, it did the first 1,400 kilometers. If you have to pay that on diesel and accommodation, because I slept 2 nights on the ferry. In the end, is it worth it financially? Maybe, because the car is more or less rust-free. It's not a super beauty, so it's not in what you would call a mint condition, but a good condition, a very good condition. So in the end, if I would have to sell that car right away, I would surely get out even, which is not God-given. So it could end up differently because you find out stuff you couldn't check on site. But for me, the important part was the trip. And you can't really weigh this up in money. So it was great. I loved it. So I hope I told you everything about the trip, all the details. It wasn't too boring. See you in the next video. Stay safe and healthy. Bye.